joining us for Evolving Economy's next panel, From Online to Offline, where Function of Beauty meets their customers. I'm Robin Lee, investor at GGV Capital, and I'm so delighted to be here today with Zahir Dossa, co-founder and executive chairman of Function of Beauty, and Alexandra Papazian, CEO of Function of Beauty. It's hard to believe how fast time has passed. I actually first met Zahir 4.5 years ago, a few months after their launch of their first product back in October of 2016. I very much remember flying from the Bay Area into New Jersey and then driving 2.5 hours to go visit Catawissa, which was very scenic, by the way, but had no cell service. So I was very worried about my ways breaking down, where they had their first production facility that, if you could remember, Zahir, could fulfill 800 orders per day. And your company really employed only about 20 full-time people at most at that time. Now, fast forward to 2021, Function of Beauty now employs hundreds of people, developed multiple manufacturing plants in the US, and expanded from online to even offline. I looked back at our investment thesis from 2017, and still to this day, no one is able to do personalization of hair care and skincare at the scale that you can do. And you're now the world leader in customizable beauty with millions of visits to your website per month. Actually want to go back to the panel that you were on when we were in our first Evolving E ever as well. So glad we're here together today, and welcome Alex as well. Zahir, I'm going to kick it off to you to begin. You co-founded the company back in 2015 with Josh and Ian, and now 6 years in, you're one of the most successful personalization companies in CPG. What was your original vision for Function of Beauty?
That's a great question, and thanks for that throwback. I fondly remember all of those memories. So it's still remember you walking around with your phone FaceTiming with Han so he could see our production facility. Ironically, I think the vision for Function 4.5 years ago or 6 years ago, when we started the company, hasn't actually changed much. It was to displace all of the existing CPG players with a new world vision for how beauty should be formulated and sold and communicated about in a new age. And so, there's still some big CPG players around, so we're just getting started, but it has been really awesome to watch the growth of Function and really prove something which hadn't been proved up until we were able to do it, which is customization can indeed scale. And I think that was the first and biggest barrier to creating a new vision for beauty, right? This idea of one-to-one products so that every customer has a unique and perfect product was this idea of customization at such a big degree. I think everybody was pretty concerned of how you can actually get it to be automated, enable it to scale in order for it to not just be a small niche market. And so I think that's been a really cool thing to witness is watching Function of Beauty actually achieve customization at scale so that we are laying the foundation for this new world order of beauty as we foresee it.
Can you walk us through the evolution of Function of Beauty and also your evolution as a founder as well? Because I think the audience here today is a lot of entrepreneurs and also leaders in their companies.
Yeah, so we started the company with me and two other founders, so Josh Majeski and Ian. Josh and I were best friends at MIT, and I needed a counterpart, someone who was able to actually create this automated production facility if we were to fulfill this promise of revolutionizing beauty. And so he was one really critical part, and then the other was Ian, who actually had an insane amount of formulation chemistry experience working at a huge contract manufacturer and developing formulations for each of these companies who actually understood this new breakthrough idea of getting user inputs and using those to create a custom formulation for each and every single person, not creating formulations for giant companies. And so she was instrumental in helping develop this algorithm, developing the first ever hair quiz, and creating this channel between the products people wanted and then the products we were able to actually create. And so the three of us in our humble abode originally in Stamford, Connecticut, before we converted a farm building in Catawissa, Pennsylvania, uh, really did focus on those elements. So making sure that every product was a one-to-one customized experience for each of our customers, and that product was able to be produced in an automated way, A, so that it could scale, and B, so that it was as accurate as necessary to create a perfect formulation. And so, the production facility you saw was somewhere in between. We were at a point where we were doing 50 orders a day, probably less than that. Obviously scaled it to the point that you saw, and now are doing thousands of products a day, which is pretty staggering. And it is really awesome to see not only how we've become the biggest online personalized hair care company, but are now expanding into new channels like offline with our Target launch at the beginning of this year, and then also new categories as we start to venture into skincare.
And that leads you to bring on Alex.
Correct.
And so thrilled to have you here, Alex, and so lucky to have met you as well. You have such an incredible background leading top tier brands in beauty and fragrance, especially founder led brands from Giorgio Armani to YSL to Laura Mercier. Still remember like starting off as a little teenager, like, oh, I found this at Sephora. And almost all the top beauty brands, every female consumer knows. And so, like, what led you to Function of Beauty, and how did you and Zahir how did the stars align?
Free shampoo, I figured, for my long hair. Well, more seriously, thank you, Robin. First of all, great question. I've always been attracted to very strong brand with very crystal clear DNA. And oftentimes these brands happen to be founder led or have a founder that left such a strong imprint on the business and on the teams that it transcends time. In addition, what all these brands have in common is a very authentic and genuine story. And they're often also the first at something. And that's really important because that's usually what leads them to becoming very well known and really disruptive in their marketplace. So I think, when I met with Zahir and then with Josh and Ian, I immediately recognized those characteristics, which was very exciting to me because the company is still very young. And, Function of Beauty is clearly the first to have accomplished what no one has been able to accomplish so far, which is customization at scale. Function does this leveraging state-of-the-art, unique technology, but also state-of-the-art software and hardware on the industrial side of things, which I have to tell you from having seen those capabilities in person, I can tell you there is nothing like what I saw in Katowice in the industry. Absolutely nothing like it. So the short answer is I joined Function because I was very impressed with the team behind the brand, the team who built Function, who made it what it has become today. And because I also see a huge potential for the brand based on, this initial innovative and creative spark that, the team created from day one.
Yeah. I also was sold on the hair care and now the skincare. And so, given the recent digital evolution from the rise of Instagram to Snap to TikTok influencers, What are some of the paths that you've seen that were very successful from top brands who you've worked with to reach customers, especially ones that are omni-channel, like now given that function has started to go omni-channel as well?
Well, actually, it's interesting because a lot of founder brands have had very different experiences with social media and digital. Some brands chose to be careful with social media, sometimes to the risk of being disconnected or missing out on connecting with their audience. And that's true of a lot of fashion luxury brands sometimes. Other brands have wholeheartedly embraced the transition, the digital evolution, and they've learned along the way. So I think what's most important is to first understand who your audience is and really understand what resonates with them. Brand voice and brand execution should always be authentic, in my view. So that's really criteria number one. There's no point in trying to imitate what your direct competitor is doing. It's really pointless. I think you really need to connect with your audience and understand that. The second criteria, I think, is creativity. There is absolutely no magic recipe to being successful in social media or digital, but there is certainly a reward to creativity and ideas that align with the brand DNA and with your audience. Creativity is super important, and each brand needs to forge its unique path and its unique approach based on what the brand stands for and what the brand believes in. And last, but I think certainly not least, I truly believe in building a best in class internal team with the right talent in house to drive that strategy and to have the ability to innovate, take risk, and react and adapt very quickly. I'm a huge believer in building that talent from the inside. So
Yeah,
I think all these three things to me are really fundamental in embracing social media evolution and digital evolution.
Zahir, you're very close to that as well. So, like, even from the early days, you were so much part of that dialogue of even controlling some of the brand image and the designs of it. What have you seen from like the pandemic, kind of spurring this digital revolution too? I don't. I think you probably didn't see it coming.
Yeah, no, definitely didn't. And, I think for Function, it was a double-edged sword in the sense that obviously it was an accelerated way for consumers to start to shop the way we would ideally like them to shop, right? In an online manner, interacting with our website, engaging with our value proposition, and getting their product that way. And so I think that piece was really nice. Downside is we do everything in house, right? So we don't use contract manufacturers. We don't have outsiders coming up with our product formulations or anything like that. And so it was a tricky situation internally to navigate to make sure that we could actually manufacture these products. And then obviously had a huge international following as well, and with delayed shipping and all of that was pretty tough. So, anyways, I say it just because I think every company has had to navigate COVID-19 in a different way. And just because something is D2C doesn't necessarily make it, better or ill, a better fitted or ill fitted for what has led to this digital revolution, or just this increased number of eyes looking at various online media sources for information and for shopping. The one thing I will say is I think every company needs to figure out what it is that they can do that no one else in the world can, right? Like they have to really hone in on what that value proposition is and then leverage anything and everything to get it out into the world. And so for us, it's not like we necessarily are trying to figure out, okay, how do we optimize, where we where we market or whatnot. It's actually a lot more so. Here's our message. We want to shout it to the world, and how do we use any and all channels in order to leverage that?
Yeah, there's been so much brand love for you guys, especially now that it's also offline. I remember there was some crazy statistic around even just like the penetration of shopping for hair care online is like 3%. Maybe like COVID drove it up another percentage point or two, but it's still very much in its infancy. Um, and let alone personalization, right? And so you mentioned earlier that you started kind of Target as your first retail expansion. And so personalization is the cornerstone for you guys, right? Like you have not yet created a single combination twice. There's billions of combinations. And so
Trillions, yeah.
how have you brought personalization to brick and mortar? And because I know it is kind of like a hybrid too.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was a big challenge for a while as we thought through, okay, we are now advertising through all these different channels. I think people get it, right? That we were the first to customization, are the best in terms of reviews or number of combinations or whatever metric you want to use, and at least in the online space are the biggest. But to your point, there's a bigger real world out there that exists outside of the zeros and ones we originated in. And so I think for us was really taking a step back and honing in on what is it about function that's truly special, truly unique, and is there a way we can brand and communicate that in a different way in order to get to a demographic that either isn't savvy with shopping online, prefers to shop retail, prefers a slightly lower price point in order to actually try what customization is all about. And so through that was able to work very closely with Target, who believed in what we were doing, believed they were the right player to really take us from online to offline or physical, we'll say, and executed everything we really wanted. It was such a great partner to have. I don't know what stats they release and they share, but in terms of personal care, their best launch to date. And when it comes to hair care, we're now within the first year the leading hair care player in Target, which is pretty special.
If only I can get my hands on some product because they're always sold out.
Yeah, it is a
Whether it's
problem.
like the capsule or the base, I'm like, oh.
Just imagine how hard it is if you had a whole factory that had to custom make all of those things. So it's pretty staggering how we've been able to keep up with demand on the hyper customized side of it. But yeah, um, it's a challenge that both us and Target are actively working through just to make sure that customers can actually access all of our products.
Yeah, for sure. Alex, you've had so much experience in offline retail as well. And so like as you're working with partners, what are some advice that you can give us in the audience of like what are the parameters to look for when you make that transition from online to offline, and like how do you think about partnerships in retail?
I think, it always goes back to the brand for me. Having a very strong brand foundation is fundamental. Protecting that, but at the same time, flexing that where it needs to be flexed to embrace the ever-changing environment that we work in. You talked earlier about the digital, evolution, then the social media evolution, and I'm sure there's going to be another one that's going to be thrown at our faces in the next couple of years.
It's going to be the
But
customized revolution,
the
Alex.
customized revolution. But at the end of the day, the brand DNA is the most precious thing, and making sure that everybody in the organization and outside of the organization, meaning your business partners, understand that, respect that, and really, believe in that and follow that. So I think that's one of the fundamental things that we need to continue to develop. Obviously, partnership comes, from trust, from working together for many years, or starting a new relationship. So this to me is super important because we are going to embark on a big journey with Function of Beauty. I think there are a lot of opportunities ahead of us. So I cannot wait to meet all of our new and future partners, because I know there's going to be a lot of them wanting to be part of this journey with us.
Mm-hmm. How did you, you alluded to it earlier, Zahir, that like Target really got you. And I remember like all the designs and the months in the making of that. And you had such a beautiful like product and end capsule too. Was that something that like you expected? Because I don't think, I don't think it's usually that easy.
Yeah, I've always been really spoiled when it came to function, and I think we've always had a habit of being able to get what we wanted, and hope that continues for many years and decades to come. But I think we have something to say. We have a great product to offer, and we needed to make sure that the end result was something that really aligned closely to that. And while there are other cues in neighboring categories or even hair color on some DIY factor, which is what we needed to rely on in order for customers to still get a customized hair care offering at Target. We One of the big asks was being able to make sure we had the physical platform to clearly communicate what customized hair care was all about. And it resonated closely with Target because we end up appealing to a really strong set of demographics that Target is actively trying to double down on and improve upon. And so I think it was just a great partnership and a really, really great execution on Target's behalf. And so I'm super thankful that they took a leap of faith with us, and the fact that I think we're like three times their wildest expectations. It's also nice um, to be able to at least reward them with that.
Yeah, I think it's hard to find a product that can really cater to everyone, right? But and I mean even us on the call here, like in on live here, we have different types of hair and different lengths and different colors, and so glad to see that you have even different bases for everybody who wants to pick it up and try it out. Because every time I go to Target and I'm there multiple times a week, I must say, since I live 5 minutes from one. Um, but like, there's always somebody there who's and somebody with wavy hair, somebody with curly hair, somebody with straight hair, right? And so it's pretty amazing that like the product can speak to so many different people. Um, and so, Alex, what excites you about function? What's in store for us?
Well, I think, our mission is clear. We want to make personalization the new norm. And once you've said that, you've said in very few words, a very big project, a very big ambition. We have, from my perspective, a fantastic brand, which has already connected with millions of customers out there. And we have an equally strong business model, which has proven to many people that there is a huge appetite out there for customization. So with these two things in mind, I think we're just scratching the surface where we are at this stage right now, and that the possibilities are very big. So our ambitions for the company are very big. Whether we expand through new product category, whether we bring function of beauty to many more people through various channels, or whether we go international, as we've seen a lot of demand actually coming from international. So all of these things are definitely in the cards for us. But I think the most important thing to remember is that at the core of our strategy is the idea of building the most innovative beauty company and the most loved beauty company that creates products for you. And we're not trying to cater to, subcategories. We're really doing this one-on-one personalized relationship. So our focus will always be our customer of one. And that to me is very, very unique. And I'm excited about that. And I think this has endless possibilities within beauty or even outside of beauty, but that will be for another interview, I think.
Whoa. Yes, definitely going to follow up on that. Zahir, what do you have to add? You've been at this for, many years, but it's still like to you a baby, right? Like still so early. And it's
I would say it's now a toddler, which is
okay.
really nice. I'm, you know, I think at the starting of this year, and even looking at the various options we have at the table last year, right, to really define what the future for function of beauty will be, and if we do really want to take that next leap and double down on on this vision. And so it was, I think the last year and a half have been really, really powerful in the one sense, every time I see an order, uh, it still does feel like magic. It is really cool to be able to start something truly unique and different and watch a new person get it, right? Like I think I'm still humbled to meet any customer. It's really cool to be able to have that connection and understand, okay, what we're doing is really as great as we think it is. So I think that was one very like emotional aspect of the brand and the company that I wanted to make sure always stay tight. But at the same time, I also realized that as we want to go further and bigger into personalization, it's it's a timely moment for us to start ushering in a new era of leadership. And so I'm super excited to have Alex now at the reins of function. I'm really excited by the other C-suite. It's really cool to get the greatest minds together to to take this to the next level. And so I think that's what's so exciting for me is to be able to watch and witness and help uh, this new leadership team continue the vision for function.
It's awesome. I would say like I would love for you to share maybe like one piece of advice to founders out there. I think Zahir on how you even made that decision and that leap to hire a C-suite that is what it is today, right? Like it didn't just kind of spring up and just like you wake up and you decided to do this, and it took a lot, right? And so and I was grateful to have been a part of that, and not every founder can do that. And so how did you come to that realization? And Alex would love for you to also give some advice to our fellow founders out there who are, building a brand and building out any advice you can and give around brand strategy would be amazing.
Yeah, so I always tell founders the same two things, and I think the second thing is really what resonated for developing the leadership team. So the first is make sure you're solving the biggest problem in an industry. I think all too often we try to come up with small little tweaks or just try to reinvent something that's already been done. And I think it's really, really powerful as a founder to make sure that you are solving this bleeding neck wound, right? Like something that is truly problematic in an industry. And so for us, personalization was it, right? There was no one-to-one. We spend all these marketing dollars on the new and latest ingredients, or here's a real cool, sexy personality. But there's only so many ingredients you can put into a bottle, and no sexy, awesome personality seems to stay sexy and awesome forever. And so for us, it was really clear that personalization was this huge problem that needed to be solved. So that's the first piece of advice that I give everyone is just make sure that you're actually solving the biggest problem in an industry. The second piece is make sure you're doing it with the greatest team in the world. And when you're starting off, that means choose your co-founders very, very wisely and choose that starting team that you want to be surrounded with very wisely and make sure it is the best that the world has to offer, because all too often a lot of founders don't listen to my first piece of advice, and instead of solving the biggest problem just end up replicating another solution. And the world is way too small for you to just have first mover advantage and assume you're going to win. Like, you need to make sure that every single person you have is better than anyone else in the world. And if at any point that changes, then I think you need to take a step back and get those other better people at the helm. And that's why, we made this big shift this year, was taking a long look in the mirror and realizing, while we love the brand and think we were the best founders Function could have had, we're now 6 years into it, and there are actually people who know more about taking this company to that next level um, than us. And so for me, Alex, is that person. She is a better Zahir, a better CEO for Function, and I'm super excited to empower and help her as much as possible. But uh, it was to me, it was a pretty easy decision.
Thank you, Zahir.
And no pressure now.
Listen, as far as advice, I would say if something looks too big or too complicated or too difficult to accomplish, that's exactly the reason why you should pursue it. So, whether you work in a startup or you work in a bigger company, you will always have people along your way to tell you that, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, for various reasons. And I think, being persistent and believing in yourself is very important. So it kind of goes back to what Zahir was saying, but just in probably with a slightly different perspective. But I think, believing in your vision as a founder, obviously, and really pushing it through, because you will find more people to tell you not to do something than people who will support you to do it. So I'm very fortunate that I've had amazing mentors and leaders I worked with through my entire career. And I've really consider myself to be very lucky, because without these people, I would probably not be where I am today. And I think the second point is to really know to recognize these very special people when, they come along the way, and really surround yourself with people who are equally strong, if not stronger than you at certain, metrics and certain aspects of different jobs and different, domains that you have to lead as a leader. I think that's really key. The team makes a big difference, and I think people you encounter along the way who will give you advice, who will spark your curiosity and really trigger ideas and creativity. I think these two elements to me have been fundamental. So I would say being always open-minded and never settling, always thinking about, what can I do better? What is another way of doing things? And really going for that. That's my very personal approach. And, that's, I think it aligns pretty well with the values of Function of Beauty based on the many conversations that Zahir and I have been having over the past few months. So this looks like a perfect match, I think.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your
Thanks,
insights
Robin.
and your journey. Can't
Thank
wait.
you, Robin.
Yeah, can't wait for more. So stay tuned, everyone, and I'm sure we'll have another conversation again.
That's
Cool.
right. Bye. Bye,
Bye.
Robin. Bye, Zahir.